coffee or water, you know where it's at, but want to be mindful of everyone's schedules. Okay. Hi. This is my right friend.
So I can see.
Oh, okay. You want to do that? Is that better?
Well, you can see.
No.
I can see from here. It's fine.
Okay. Hi, dear Michelle. Hi. Okay. Come and knock on my door. All right. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
What's going on? Back at you. Thanks for the engagement. All right, Igwehi and Dara, will you unmute and we'll go ahead and get this started. So part of the professional development piece for the Lipstick Network is knowing how to negotiate. So I invited women in my life. I actually reached out to Igwehi James because Instagram pushed her dress to me. I actually think it's the one I'm wearing today. And I reached out to Igwehi and I said, hey, super love your stuff. I'm a white girl from the South. Is that cultural appropriation? I want to be super respectful, but it's the most beautiful stuff ever. And Igwehi, you were so filled with joy and just generosity. And so thank you for being open to connecting with me. And I now own 3 of your pieces and there's 2 more in my cart. So, and Lucia Cantor St. Amour, Melanie Lippman through LinkedIn. I reached out to her and I just kind of shared my heart. So we're here today. Diana and I went to high school together. And now our girls go to school together. So we are going to talk about negotiations. I know that Lucia is the writer of this book, and I think there's some kind of trivia or something, Lucia, that you're facilitating. But let's go ahead and Igwehi, if you don't mind kind of kicking off, what we'll do is we'll do kind of Zoom, we'll do Igwehi, Diana, Dara, and then we'll have a little bit of a conversation, and then Lucia is really going to be our subject matter expert to say, hey, we had really good conversation, but let's be better in this way. So in an uplifting kind of feedback way. All right, Igwehi, share a little bit about who you are, what do negotiations mean to you, and go ahead.
Sure. So again, my name is Igwehi James, and I am an entrepreneur. I have a African-inspired clothing and apparel company here in Oakland, California. And negotiation, I think anyone who has ever, from childhood, we've all been kind of taught how to negotiate, whether that be for like cookies when our parents want to give us like carrots or, or whether we want a raise. And so I think in my position as a business owner who actually did not go to school for fashion or business, entrepreneur, anything, I've had to kind of learn along the way. And it's been a real trial by fire experience. And so as a business owner who sells products, I've had to negotiate pretty much in every kind of aspect of the business, whether that be sourcing material and how much I'm paying for the material, from production cost, everything that I sell. I used to make myself, but thankfully we have outgrown that phase of the business. But everything is produced right here in Oakland, California. So I am having to contend with other businesses who are getting things produced abroad and probably for a lot cheaper. And so figuring out how I can produce things locally, ethically, at a price that is suitable for not only the business, but is attainable for a lot of my customers. So I've found myself in really challenging situations where I've been offered to sell my things for much higher at a luxury level, and realizing that while it would be great for business, just really maintaining who I am and who I hope to serve. And so I think there's been a lot of negotiation I've had to do with myself, right? I think it has not always been easy, and sometimes I wish I've made different decisions, but, thinking about, I have one clear example. I was offered to be in a high-end boutique, and they really, the owners of the boutique really said that my prices are way too low. And I would be the lowest my prices would be kind of the lowest price range in their store. And so for me, I'm like, I want to be the lowest price in this high-end store, but then how do I create pieces that fit that higher end mark, but also maintain this brand at a level that really meets my target audience? And so in that negotiation, I actually chose to pass up on that offer for the time being, and that was challenging. But I know who I am, and I know what this business means to a lot of people, and what this brand means to a lot of people. And so, yeah, in the journey, there's been a lot of self negotiation, but I'm comfortable with where I am right now.
That's awesome, Igwe. Thank you so much for sharing that. As someone not in boutique ownership or textiles or all of that, the intricacies and the ins and outs, I mean, it's so dynamic, and a brand and a community that goes with it, right? And I guess actually that's a really good transition, and we'll come back around, Igwe, because that's kind of a literal example that you shared, but definitely want to get more into the emotional and those sorts of negotiations. So we'll kind of go and transition into community, right? So Diana, you are so many things.
Yes. So like I said earlier, I am a professional content creator. And so you might be thinking, like, what is she talking about? What even is that? So pretty much to sum it up, even though I do a lot of things, I create video and photographic content, and I post that on the internet to inspire my audience for my specific niche, which is family travel, to step out of their comfort zone and travel with their families more. And I try to find really tangible and actionable ways for my audience to be able to do that, to make it really accessible for them. And so for me, like, the one thing I kind of wanted to touch on, because there's a lot of ways that I have to negotiate on a daily basis and really advocate for myself and my worth. But what I really wanted to touch on was how difficult it is to do that when things aren't going as well. Like, it's easy to do that when you're getting the brand deals and you have the customers coming and you're doing all of this. But how about when it's dried up? Recently, this is our family business. We've had a couple of months where it's been completely dry. And, we start to question, should I lower my prices? Should I, is it me? Is it something that I'm doing wrong? Am I not, is what I'm creating not good? And so advocating for yourself when things are going well can seem a little easier, but when things are going wrong, it's really, really difficult. So in this specific scenario for us, we had about 6 months that things just weren't coming in like we had in the past. Ironically, it was after my husband quit his job and started to come full-time with us, so there was that added pressure as well. And it was really scary, and there was a lot of pressure then. Do I reduce my rates? Do I do the same amount of work for less? Do I switch things up? Do I change? Do I modify kind of my values and my mission behind my business? And it's difficult to find the worth and not have that, like you were talking about, that vicious cycle of this negative narrative happen, and how you can overcome that and still say, okay, no, this is what I know that I should be charging, and stay confident and strong in that. And so we did end up turning away a lot of things that also didn't feel right for us, didn't align with our values as a company and as a family. And even though that felt really, really scary, and my husband and I went back and forth thinking, are we doing the right thing? Maybe we should, just this one time. Maybe we should just say, okay, let's just take it for the lower price, or let's just take on this campaign. We stuck to our guns, and in the end, the dry spell did start to kind of fade. And I don't necessarily think it was solely just for timing. I do think that it also was about the value that we were then advocating for in ourselves, and that we weren't willing to compromise on that. And I do feel that energy kind of translates to the people around you, to the businesses that you interact with. And to the people that you're communicating with constantly when you're trying to advocate for your business.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. All right, dear Michelle, we're going to transition to you. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do and your position in negotiation as an executive, as a mom, and kind of in a very creative but also corporate space.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, Dara Michelle. I head marketing for a record company, Def Jam, based in New York. I think my day-to-day, I mean, I have a team of product managers who are incredible. And really, I think our negotiation, or what stands out for me when thinking about this was we're really kind of in this creative space and how it meets the business world. And so, you know, you're dealing with somebody's art and somebody's, it is so deeply personal and how you fuse that and translate that into our expectations, our budgets. And so I think just, you know, for me, it's really just like, how do you approach a person? How do you manage what that conversation looks like? How do you both walk away feeling fulfilled? I think a lot of my landscape has changed quite significantly during the pandemic, and really trying to figure out how to meet expectations and just bring things to life in a way that, from a business perspective, we're going to be pleased with as well. So.
Thank you for sharing. So before our subject matter expert brings in her expertise, I want to hear from you who are here. Thank you all, Igwe, Dara, Diana, for sharing a little bit about that. I definitely want to have everybody, negotiations to you, what does that mean? Is that only money? Is that time? Talk to me a little bit about your relationship. Again, this is the professional development piece, right? So I really want you to put on that hat of negotiations in the professional context. And so let's have a conversation about that. What do you struggle with, or where have you seen a success in that for yourself? Yes, Dr. Davis.
I was going to say, it is really hard. I know for me, even being in the mental health field, and also even in Christian field, and within that, during the pandemic, you know, mental health was called upon, and I did do a lot of pro bono of speaking for people.
Yeah.
But the reality is, this is also my livelihood,
sure.
And I can't, you know, and so it has been like all of these things have dried up. So I was glad to hear, thank you, like it's dried up a lot of the speaking that I was doing, because at this point I'm like, no, I have to put a monetary value on this. It is causing me that I would have to miss clients. I would have to prepare for the things that you're asking me to do, because I'm never going to go and speak and not be prepared in what you're requesting and asking of me. And it's so funny because I got people like in the church, people do it for free. That's great and that's amazing, and I'm okay with that, but you're asking me for my professional. It's not even, being honest with you, it's not, you're not asking me as the ordained pastor that I am, that everybody skips over. You keep coming to me because of my mental health and what is my professional.
Yeah.
And so it is very much, even from a cultural standpoint, for minority and definitely the African American community of pro bono, it's like, yes, I'm watching you charge people for these conferences. I'm watching you do that, and I actually don't even have a high price, you know, kind of deal. Even if I look at mental health wise and what I charge, I can very much relate that I'm in the price range that's probably on the lower end. I'm there because I am called to be there, because there are families who see me who can't afford and they need a high quality of care. And I refuse to go higher. Yes, I know I am definitely worth more. I am not your average therapist, will never be your average therapist. So I understand my work, but I also understand the calling of being able to reach, because I do believe certain groups of people deserve to have a high quality care, but they really just can't afford it.
Yeah.
And so I have to look at that. And so it is hard also, because I have other people going, you should charge more, you should be at the 250, 300 level. I know I'm 250 and 300 worth, you know, within it. But I want to reach those middle class people who can't come close to affording that. I don't do insurance, because that's a whole other thing of the work, and to get reimbursed by insurance.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that, you know, kind of situation. And so it is hard of balancing, you know, with that negotiation piece of understanding, you know, my worth, my value, but also looking at it and also looking at the people that I know you can afford what I'm charging and plus more. Right. So stop playing.
Well, it's interesting, Dr. Davis, because you're negotiating community culture, right? Your faith, your livelihood, right? I mean, there's so much there, and your expertise. So thank you for, it's all complicated, right? And I think it's really important that we flesh this out in the nuance of these various facets of who we are. It's really important.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing about the negotiations. I'm in the market myself for a different job, and I just made like a case for promotion and a raise, and like did the research, and it didn't work out how I wanted it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like started on my own financial coaching practice. Like, how do you ask for your worth, and sometimes find some charity cases that.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. Leanna.
Can I just add to that? Because I think something that I've struggled in my own profession in higher education, there tends to be this idea that certain sectors qualify for higher types of salaries, right? So, if you were in finance, you would make X amount, right? But because we're in, higher education, or like this idea that people who work in my cultural understanding, cultural training, higher ed, there's this mismatch, I think, of like, yeah, I'm worth this, but because I'm in a sector, you're only willing to pay me this. And that'll be an interesting thing to dig into further if anyone has.
I completely agree with it, and I think back to the conversation that Charity Flex and I had when I was offered a raise and title change last year at my job, and then the increment was so small.
Yeah.
And we tried to talk about, and I know you guys coming from more corporate and different backgrounds were like, well, you can walk in with this, this, and this, and I got very frustrated because I'm like, they're gonna laugh at me. Like, that doesn't happen there.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not afraid to ask questions, and I even did say, well, can you show me what's the next level? Like, what's the trajectory? Do we have a salary range for these certain titles that we give people? And none of that could be provided to me. I struggle with this all so much, so I'm really excited to learn from you all, because in addition to my job, I'll do some writing on the side, some freelance tutoring and things like that, working with students who are, interested in the college application process. There's a lot of things that I want to dig my hands into further. Those are all things I've kind of dabbled in, and I charge peanuts, just to say that I can do it to get a few people, or to be like, yeah, they'll just pay me my gas for the week or something like that. I really, really charge peanuts, and I don't do it very frequently too. So I could go on and on, but this is really something I struggle with because I don't see my worth in that, and I hate putting a number. On things. I have no problem saying I deserve this time off, or I deserve this, my time or my personhood. But when it comes to money, makes me feel so gross. I hate talking about money. So.
Well, let's talk about it. How do we put a number to the value that we bring? Yeah, Melissa.
I'm just going to say this. So I've been looking for another opportunity while I'm starting my business, and one of the things that I've noted, and I've done so much research. I love following people on TikTok, and I love following. So there's a lot of business people on there that show you how to kind of go through your interviews or whatever. And one of the biggest things that I've taken away is this transparency that's happening. That's more happening now than it was in the past in terms of pay. But the consistent advice that I've received and that I've used in my interviews is when they say, well, what is your expected pay for this position? Well, one, I need to learn more about the position before I can put a number on it, but why don't you tell me the range now?
Yeah, well, that's
and
good.
then I can tell you if I feel like I'm even close to that range. So I've been flipping it back, and I've been getting answers 100% so far, and I've been interviewing a lot, so I'm not just going to take anything, so I want to make sure I'm the right fit, but I flip it back, and I say, well, tell me what the range is, because I'm still learning about the position until I get through these interviews and have all my questions answered.
Yep.
I'm not comfortable giving you a dollar amount. So then I flip it back, and they say, okay, well, here's the range. You tell me if you're close to it. I usually say, I'm getting close to that range, so let's talk more about it. So then you sell them on yourself. And you say, okay, make sure you bring them in, and then once they're like, okay, we want to make you an offer, then you can kind of bring them in with a higher offer. So,
And I've heard this a lot in a lot of the other and a lot of the negotiations, and they say ask about the range, because if you give a number, you're basically negotiating against yourself.
Right.
So you're like, oh well, I make 80 now, I guess I want to make 85, 90, and you're like, oh well, I'll take 90, and they're like, oh, right, I was going to give her 120. I mean,
Yeah. Vicky, were you going to say something?
I think that transparency is good. I also think that it's important, and I'm coming from my vantage point as a Black woman. I think that in our culture, we shy away from talking about money, period, right? And I think that has really harmed our community because we don't know what our colleagues make. And because of that, we don't know that we have room to negotiate higher. And so when we all remain in this area of okay, I'm not going to tell you what I make, you really are negotiating against yourself, and it really does harm to kind of everyone across the board. there have been conversations where I've talked to people and they share what they made, and you're just like, well, what the heck is going on? Like, why am I here? But because I now know that this person in the same position and makes this much, that gives me more room to advocate for myself. So I think that it's really important that we do become more open about talking about money, because it really just does us all a disservice when we don't.
I was just going to add really quickly, like there's, obviously I know you guys are in Florida, but like there's New York and California state laws that are basically saying that, right? And they're putting protection in place for people to say, like, I know when and I think this change actually just happened in November, but listing out a new role, I'm required now to say like what the range is. And I hope that then continues to like seed across the country. But I think to the point that was made in the room, right? Asking that HR person, well, what's the range? You're always going to get a response, because I think like the industry as a whole is moving more to that transparency. So just there's great articles out there because of what's happening in New York and California.
Hey, Charity, this is Bridget. Good morning, everybody. Can I just comment real quick, Charity? Yeah, I just wanted to share. So I joined Google about 2 years ago as a senior executive. I will tell you that over the course of my career, which is deep and broad, it's not just tech, I worked in television news for years, and I worked in other capacities prior to tech. Never, ever, ever accept the first offer. There is always room, and you have to be bold enough, confident enough to do the research, to know what others in your market, because it is market specific, with your experience and the level that you're negotiating. So director, senior executive, associate, manager, whatever the title is, know what others in your area, doesn't matter gender or race. What are they being paid? It's available on the internet. You have to be bold enough and have enough curiosity to find it first. When they offer you that first offer, X number per year, with equity, no equity, bonus, no bonus, whatever, know what others in your area are making, right? And then counter. And when I say counter, counter. And don't counter and say, oh, well, if you can afford this, or, don't be wishy-washy about the counter. Be very clear. When Google offered me my executive position, excited, over the moon excited. When they went through the numbers, big numbers. I still countered. The recruiter on the phone said to me, there were 2 recruiters on the phone. One of them said, after they went through this whole delivery of numbers, and I had no pen or paper because I was riding my bicycle when they called, and I took the call because I didn't want to miss the call. So, and I didn't want to miss that call because it had taken 14 interviews to get to that point. So I wanted to take that call. So when the call came in, I sat on a bench. I was looking up at the sky. Charity knows this, I'm a Christian. So I was just prayerful and grateful to be at that point in the negotiation. And so when they're going through all the numbers, I just was memorizing, boom, 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 boom. And then when she finally stopped talking, they were like, Bridget, this is going to make you a millionaire. And I'm thinking, number one, you don't even know anything about me. You don't know anything about me. But I didn't say that. That's what I was thinking. And so she said, well, and she said, well, what are you thinking? And I just paused and I said, well, the base, it feels very parallel, very lateral to where I am. I said, the equity, I said, I think there's room for movement there. The performance bonus, I said, I'm here and you're here. I said, I think we're off. I gave rationale for everything. I counted every single bullet point. And when I was done countering, I said it with the same voice I'm talking to you right now. I don't change it don't matter who I'm talking to. I talk the same. So my voice was still the same. And then when I stopped, one of the recruiters said, do you really want to counter Google? Without hesitation, I said yes. And then I was smart enough to put my phone on mute because you don't want to keep talking. You put your phone on mute. And then you let them say what they have to say. So I put my phone on mute. I sat there and I looked up at the sky again and looked up at the birds and the clouds. And then she says, we'll try our best. We'll get back to you within 24 hours, 48 hours, but we can't guarantee anything. And, you know, we'll represent you. Da, da, da. They came back in 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen, and they exceeded everything that I countered. So please counter, never accept the first offer. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation, whether it's a job or whether you're a consultant. If you're a consultant, talk to your peers. I heard one young lady talking about gas money. Girlfriend, talk to your peers because you should have price points. There should be a scale. You don't have to offer the same price to every single person that approaches you. There should be a scale. And be flexible, but don't give, you know, we all have to survive, but don't give away your services, because I think I heard Mrs. James, I'm going to mispronounce your name. I think I heard Miss James talk about how you walk away from business that doesn't feel right. That's extremely appropriate. But just know that you have the power to fluctuate your prices depending on your consumer, the person on the other side. I negotiate everything. I negotiate with my doctor on my doctor bill. I negotiate everything. Everything is negotiable. Everything. I want a discount. Doesn't matter how much I have in the bank. I want a discount. So that's what I wanted to offer.
Oh, thank you, Bridget, so much. And Bridget's going to be with us. She's going to be our closing speaker today about investing in minority-owned businesses and her stepping into that advisorship and that investor role now that she's no longer with Google. But they were blessed to have her while she was there. Okay, so I want to, Leanna, you were going to say something. I definitely want to grab that. And I think, Michael, you wanted to say something, and then we'll jump into Lucia.
And I would like to speak
a
a little bit about the industry-specific thing,
Oh,
because it
yes.
is something that I faced as well. You know, there was no set standard. There was no transparency. My industry is fairly new, and so you couldn't just Google, like, what does an influencer make? And there are people joining the space constantly, every second of the day, who are taking these lowball offers, right? And so,
What does that mean? So, like, let's talk money. Like, what's a lowball offer? So, like, what does that mean?
people were doing it for free. We were talking about doing it for trade, doing it for free product, doing it for $50, you know, depending on what the brand could potentially be asking for.
Sure.
So, you know, it's hard to compete and advocate for yourself in a new space or space that's still trying to figure out, like, what is the average? Like, what should you be advocating for? So something I did really in the beginning, and maybe this was smart, maybe this wasn't, but I would just throw out an offer that seemed ridiculous to me. Like something in my mind, in my fear-based thinking, thought, there's no way that they're gonna take this.
What made you do that though? Like, what were you like, let me just check it, like, where did that come from? Because that's bold. Where did that come from? Like that?
That's a good question. I'm not quite sure. I
What's
can't answer that.
the worst case? They'll say no.
What's the worst case?
What's the worst case?
There was a little bit of comfort too that I was behind my computer, you know, and emailing. Maybe if I was.
If I could interrupt real quick,
Yeah.
this is something that, again, is really helping me. I heard someone on a podcast say once when they throw out a delusional number, they send it from another email address.
I do that
And
sometimes
they
too.
made up a fake assistant. So they were like, my assistant Sarah, but it was still them.
Yeah,
And
I do
that's something I
that too.
think I need to do.
If anyone ever emails me and your email, it comes back Emily, that's my husband. My husband is Emily, because that's our assistant. And then if something bad happens, we just blame it on Emily. You know, like, it solves a lot of marital conflicts too. Emily, so mad at her.
Definitely double wrote that.
So, it's just, I give away my secret. If anyone emails, I let them know.
It's in the vault, guys, in the vault.
so I'll be creating new emails today.
Name it whatever you want. But to the industry element of that was really challenging, and it also kind of like smashed my ego in ways because I got a lot of rejection. But then when I got that one yes, it's like, okay, wow, this worked. And that's all it took. And sometimes it took weeks and weeks before I got that yes. But then all it took was that one person to say, okay, you're worth that to us. And what that did is it then changed my narrative to, okay, these people are rejecting me. Does that mean that I'm bad? To, okay, I'm searching for those people that really see my value.
Yes.
And I'm not going to settle for the people that don't, because honestly, the times that I've done that in the past, those people are a pain to work with. And it doesn't just translate to the money element, it translates to, like, in the contract and the negotiations and them coming back to me for revisions and them not trusting my creative process. They don't trust the content that I'm creating for them, you know, and they want to micromanage every little thing that I do. And so not only is it about the monetary element, but if someone doesn't see your worth up front, you know, and they're negotiating for every little penny, then that's probably not something that you want to take on anyway. But you're probably I've kicked myself a few times thinking, I shouldn't have taken this deal because it just wasn't worth it. And I'm kind of, you know, now I feel really blessed that I'm in a position in my career where I feel like I don't have to, like, yes, there is an element of selling yourself in the negotiation process, but then it gets a point where it's too much.
Yeah.
Like, I've given you the information to where you can see the value that I provide, and if you do see value there, then I think that this partnership isn't going to be right.
Well, it seems to me like you said yes to yourself, the value that you know, that, right, going back to that personal growth piece, you're saying yes to the value that you create, right, yes to yourself, and then, so that means that if you need to say no to a particular company, you could, because you're rooted in.
Oh, and I was scared.
Yeah.
I didn't, you asked where this come from, I was mortified. Like, I was really, really scared. So I think there's this like misconception that you have to be this like really confident person, you're going to go out there and do it. Maybe it's making this persona and your fake email address that kind of helps. I didn't do that at first, I do that now, but you know, I made the decision that if I was going to succeed, I had to do it scared. And I do that constantly as my business grows, not perfectly, but I do it scared, and I realize that the rejection is the best way for me to